After 16 years of being in Afghanistan, not one thing has changed. Nothing has changed. We have spent close to $1 trillion. We have had 2,200 Americans killed, over 20,000 wounded. How much more can our military do to change a nation that is known as the graveyard of empires? All we're going to do is continue to spend money we don't have, meaning the American taxpayers' money. We're going to still have young men and women to be killed and lose their legs and arms. All we're doing with this bill is asking Paul Ryan to allow us to have a debate on the floor of the House. After 16 years, there are 300 members of the House of Representatives who have never had a debate about Afghanistan. So that's what this is all about. With that, John's not here yet. I'm going to ask Don Jones to speak, and then Will Fisher with both vets. Don.
Thank you, Walter, and thank everybody here. Walter put it very succinctly. I'm one of the few people that have been involved in 1 World War and 11 conflicts. And Afghanistan is a conflict for 16 years, and no one's really asking anybody, what are we doing there and why are we there? I believe Walter Jones and myself and others have the one thing. Let's debate this issue. This has nothing to do with our great servicemen and women. This is the issue, are we should or can be there. Now, I will tell you one thing, I believe, and I remember I said 11 conflicts I've been in, lived in, 1 war. When was the last time we declared war? World War II. We have not declared war since, but we've been in 11 conflicts. And what bothers me the most American people aren't aware. We have 1% of the American people involved in the military now. 1%. In World War II, darn near 90%. Loved ones were lost. We had rationing. We had metal collections. We had blackouts. We had watchouts. We had gas rationing. We had meat rationing. We had sugar rationing because we all participated in the war that we declared. I want to have a conflict tax. If any president issues a conflict and declares it and we don't declare war, 10% of the income, including everyone that even gets the largest of the government, goes into the effort to pay for that war. That makes the public more interested in what's going on overseas. If we don't do that, the public doesn't care. So I suggest respectfully, we're asking for this debate. Let's find out where American people are. Let's understand one thing, 16 years is too long. Check all the rest of the conflicts we had in the war we had, even World War II, 5 years. 5 years is the longest. Now we had this for 16 years. So Walter, thank you for your effort and work, and God bless you. Let's get this done.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, gentlemen. My name is Will Fisher. I'm an Iraq War veteran, United States Marine, and the Director of Government Relations for Vote Vets, the largest progressive veterans organization in the country. And while I do stand up here today as someone who has opinions about things like combat, I also stand before you as someone who knows what combat smells like. It's very personal to me. It's something I've experienced firsthand. And you see, what we're talking about today is having a debate, having a conversation. Even the most fledgling should be able to see, after 16 years, that the answer is not always going to be, let's just throw more troops into harm's way. These are serious conversations. These are conversations about people's lives. I believe, I stand up here, yes, as someone who knows combat. I'm also stand up as someone who believes in our republic, in our processes, in debates in the town square, and certainly debates in our houses of Congress. And that's what we want to see. And for those who do decide at the end of the day that they do want to support an escalation of force, I look forward to seeing them walk with their sons and daughters to the recruiting station the next day. Thank y'all very much. Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Congressman John Garamendi from California. Walter and I have been on the Armed Services Committee now for, well, Walter for a long time, but 7 years for me. And as each year goes by, as each year we do an NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, and we almost routinely continue on with the funding for Afghanistan and beyond. And year after year I ask myself, don't you suppose we really ought to debate this? that we really ought to get into the details about how we win this war. We certainly know how we got into it. How do we get out of it? What's the end game here? What else is necessary if we're to continue? How many more troops and when and where? And we've never really been forced to do that. It's easier just to let it roll on. Military comes in, surges of the past, perhaps a new surge underway or will soon be underway, and yet Congress of the United States, the only of the three branches of government has the power to wage war, has not really looked at seriously this war, entering into its 16th year, and likely, according to some generals, to go on for generations. That's not right. It's our responsibility, each and every Congress, to come to grips with the reality of war and to have a debate and to determine whether we want to continue, and if so, to what extent. How many men and women? How much equipment? How much treasure? $3 billion a month right now. More coming? Probably. We need to debate this. So the legislation that Walter and I have introduced is very straightforward. We would hope the Congress would pass it. And then 1 year later, the elected representatives of the American people, together with the President, would be forced to come to grips with the reality of the longest war in America's history. Whether we should continue it, at what level, or whether we should find an exit strategy. So that's where we are. I think all of you know we now have votes called. So if we appear to be running, we will, but not away from this issue. Questions quickly.
Let me make one quick comment. The little girl whose daddy was a Marine was killed by the Afghan he was training to be a policeman. The man that was also killed with him was Major Palmer from Cherry Point in my district. Their daddy was stationed at Camp Lejeune from my district. That is war, the pain of war, children, and then the flag-draped coffin. How many more coffins do we have to come back to this country before Speaker Ryan will say we need to debate the future of Afghanistan? What questions might you have?
My name is Zachman. I'm from Voice of America. What exactly do you want Congress to do? What is the legislation that you have to propose? A total withdrawal from Afghanistan and what time frame? How many members of Congress are with you on this?
Let me say this, and then I'll let John speak. The last time we had a debate on Afghanistan was the AUMF in 2001. We've been 16 years later with a few amendments on the floor on other bills that gave us 10 minutes. We're asking for a legitimate debate of 3, 4, 5 hours about the policy in Afghanistan. We're asking Speaker Ryan, he can initiate this today if he wanted to. And he doesn't seem to want to take the responsibility of the blood that comes from our soldiers and Marines dying in a country that will never change no matter what you do.
Many Americans share Walter's passion, and I do also. Here's what we must do. We must hear from our military, our generals and admirals, how they propose to conduct this war. We must learn from them what is the end game, what does it take to bring this to a successful conclusion. We must hear from our President as well as from ourselves. What's our goal? What is our goal in Afghanistan? To create a democratic government? Is it to create a safe place where there will be no terrorists? That goal has not been articulated at least for 16 years. And we need to hear from the State Department, from the development agencies, and from the think tanks. What is the situation? What will happen in the future? What are the options available to us? We need that information. That's why we say 1 year after the passage of this, the funding stops, and that then forces us to understand, to debate, to gather the information, and to set in place the policy. The policy may be to continue on. The policy may be to not. That's what we need to do.
How many are you in the Congress?
Please take a question from somebody else.
When world leaders meet tomorrow in Brussels, they'll be debating whether to increase the number of troops sent to Afghanistan. Absent a debate in the U.S. Congress, what would you hope that world leaders consider as the essential issues?
I'll try to answer the question very succinctly. Apparently, the administration is unsure what it wants to do. I can assure you the Congress is equally unsure. But what I want Congress to do is not to continue blindly and continually doing what we did before. Anybody that looks at this must understand that what we've been doing for the last decade has not worked to a successful conclusion.
Commander Cleveland and also John Duncan, co-sponsors of the bill. I want them to get a chance to speak, and then we'll take the questions.
Well, I'm Congressman Duncan from the 2nd District of Tennessee. I'm here to support my friend Walter Jones and others in this effort. I think the American people are sick and tired of a 16-year war that has gone on about 4 times what World War II has. I remember I'm a very conservative Republican, and I remember William F. Buckley, the icon of conservatism, decided that our efforts in Iraq was a mistake. He changed his position from support to one of opposition. And he said that he reached a point when steadfastness of purpose indicates not just tenacity, but misapplication of pride. And I think that we've reached that point far beyond that in Afghanistan. I also remember that one of the highest officials at the CIA wrote in 2001 an article in Foreign Affairs magazine that Afghanistan through its history has been a great heart for terms. So I'm here to support the efforts here today. I think the sooner we get out of Afghanistan, the better off we for everybody, especially our
Manuel Cleveland from Missouri, I'm one of the co-sponsors. It's very clear that in war, truth is often the first casualty. And truth, in this case, means that people who are still supporting the war cannot give a cogent reason why we are in Afghanistan. They cannot give anything that reeks of truth. We are fighting in Afghanistan in a war that we went into by mistake. And so what did we do to correct it? We added 15 years to it. And as long as we do that, we're going to argue and hear about a budget when at the same time we're borrowing money from China to fight a war in Afghanistan. And the Chinese don't have to worry about us fighting them because they're not going to finance it. Thank you.
I am pleased now that another key sponsor of this legislation from Kentucky is Thomas Massey. Would like to make comments, and then we'll take questions if you have any.
Well, I'll be brief. I appreciate your waiting. I want to thank Congressman Walter Jones for his leadership. He's been steadfast on this issue. His commitment to the veterans is unmatched here in Congress, and also to our country and our Constitution. I think what we're learning in Afghanistan, after being there longer than we were in Vietnam, is the dangers of passing an open-ended AUMF. We need to declare a war, and we need to define the objectives, because frankly we're not winning in Afghanistan. What we've done is we've spent over $100 billion trying to rebuild a country, the results of which are very dubious. We've spent billions of dollars, $8 billion on a war on drugs there, and in that period of time, since we've been involved in Afghanistan, poppy production has doubled. By any metric that you would use to measure whether we have succeeded in building a nation over there, we have failed. And so I think it's time to have a debate here in Congress, not not about the money per se and the failed efforts to rebuild that country, but whether our men and women should still be dying in Afghanistan for what are very unclear goals in that country. So with that, I'll turn it back to my dear colleague Walter Jones and take some questions.
Let's see if you have any questions of Mr. Massey or myself. And again, thank you for waiting for this. We do appreciate it. Okay.
Do you think that U.S. national security is at stake in Afghanistan?
Well, I will speak first, then Mr. Massey. No, I do not. I'm more worried about jihadists in Colombia, Central and South America, than I am jihadists over 10,000 miles away.
Congressman, it's my understanding that your bill has 9 co-sponsors. If this issue is growing support in Congress, why don't you think more of your colleagues are being heard?
Well, we're doing a Dear Colleague that's going out the week we come back from Memorial break, and I was hoping that with you being here and the American people and those who have been there, I've talked to 2 Marines last week down in my district. One had been there 5 times, and he said, Congressman, it's not worth 1 penny or 1 pint of blood to be there.
Obviously what Congressman Jones and I want is to get out of Afghanistan and wind things down there. But what we're asking for is not that outcome from the debate. We're asking for a debate. We've asked it of the prior Speaker of the House. We're asking it of this Speaker of the House. And we feel like we're not fulfilling our constitutional obligation if we just let this thing drag on and we don't have a debate. And our colleagues could be for remaining in Afghanistan, but we think they should go in there and take that tough vote.
To Thomas's point very quickly, the only time we have had since 2001 was the last time we had a legitimate debate on Afghanistan. That was after 9/11 and bin Laden we were after, and he was supposed to be located in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Since that time, the only type of debate we have had is on an appropriations bill or some other policy bill that they give us 10 minutes, 5 for and 5 against. Isn't that 2 little girls whose daddy was killed by the man he was training? Don't they deserve the Congress to meet its constitutional responsibility? Anybody else?
Congressman, did you say these families were from Camp Lejeune, or can you talk more specifically about Camp Lejeune and what you learned from members of your district in terms of this issue?
About Camp Lejeune?
Yes.
Well, the former Commandant, Chuck Krulak, if you read our bill 1666, we quote him on page 4, and he agrees with Mr. Massey and myself. We have done enough in that Afghanistan. With nothing's going to change. It is the graveyard of empires. We have spent $6 million to buy 9 goats in Afghanistan. We have paid 200,000 Afghans to be soldiers that don't even exist. The article said ghost soldiers. Don't the American people in the military deserve better than that? At least a debate to meet our constitutional responsibility before we send them over there to lose their legs and arms and die? Well, if there are no other questions, thank you for being here today, and thank you for waiting for a series of votes that we could not control.
Have you thought about a discharge petition?
I think that might be our next step, quite frankly, if Mr. Ryan, who is responsible for protecting our constitutional rights as members of the House, will not give us the opportunity to meet our responsibility of debating war, then I think we're going to look at other opportunities. We're going to see how many of our colleagues will respond to our Dear Colleague letter to join 9 of us who've already signed this bill, including Mr. Massey.